Welcome to the Sales Leaders Operating System, the podcast for sales leaders who know that success starts with strong leadership. Whether it's your first time leading a team or you're a seasoned pro, we've got the real-world advice you need to lead your team to greatness. Now, here's your host, Matt McDarby.
Hello and welcome to the Sales Leaders Operating System, the podcast for sales leaders, built by sales leaders. This is Matt McDarby. I'm your host and author, coach, and advisor to elite sales leaders all over the world. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have an outstanding guest. Let me introduce you to them now. My next guest has been in the sales performance industry for 3 decades. If you've competed in the sales training world, you know this individual. Steve Gielda is one of the top, absolute best sellers and leaders in the sales performance industry. He started way back when at Lanier Worldwide, selling office technology. He was then recruited and joined a company whose name you may not know, but whose founder you would definitely know. Steve worked as a selling consultant for Cultivate, and he was a top consultant for that company, working really closely with the founder and the creator of Spin Selling, none other than Neil Rackham. So that was Steve's first entry into the sales performance business. After he left Huthwaite, he's been a partner or principal in a few different sales performance and training organizations. Today, he is the president and co-founder of Ignite Selling, a very close partner of mine. I'm so pleased to have him join us. Steve Gielda, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Matt. It's good to be working with you here.
Yeah, I think our audience is really going to enjoy the conversation because you have a unique perspective, right? You've been a seller, you've led teams, but really for the last, call it, couple of decades, you've been in the business of working with leaders and their teams to just get better, right? To be more effective at executing their sales process and methods and winning, frankly. So what I'd love to do is just ask you some questions and dive right in and then see what we can learn based on your experience. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, beautiful. All right, so a big theme for those who've been listening to the show, a theme of the show of late has been systems thinking. Why? Because the best sales leaders that I've observed and worked with over the years have a system or a way of thinking about and making sense of all of the different interconnected parts and related parts of the sales organization. So they can make sense of all the complexity, right?
Yeah.
And by having that system or a systematic way of looking at the business, they're able to diagnose and tune and make the whole thing work together, hopefully, to deliver the result that they're paid to achieve. Now, you've worked with hundreds of sales leaders probably, right? Or maybe it's in thousands, I don't know, over the years on sales transformations over the last couple of decades, and you've observed some really great leaders along the way. So what would you say are the most important parts of a sales leader's system in your experience?
It's a great question to start off with, Matt. I think when you start looking at all the different components of a sales leader's system, all the different things that make sales leaders necessary in a business today, I think there are probably 2 components that are most critical. And we could debate all the other aspects of it. But it comes right down to it. A sales leader's job is to drive revenue and to drive profitable revenue in a timely manner. And it requires smart execution of strategies in order to make that happen. And there are 3 things that I just kind of added to that answer. 1 are the business outcomes that you're held accountable to. 2 are the sales strategies that you need to execute in order to achieve those sales outcomes. And the 3rd things are those critical behaviors that need to be executed flawlessly to achieve or to reach those sales strategies. I believe that many sales leaders, some of the best sales leaders, are those to whom have clarity regarding those 3 areas. They know exactly what they're held accountable to. They know that the business metric that they're trying to improve, for example, is to increase margins by 7%. That's one of their goals, sales goals, maybe. They know that maybe a strategy to achieve that 7% margin growth is to focus more on product X And if they can focus more on product X and increase that revenue maybe by 15% this year, product X carries the highest margin, we will hit that margin requirement easily merely by putting more focus on product X. Now the question comes is, what does our sales team need to do to be more effective at selling more product X? And so we have to look at what are those things I'm holding my sales reps accountable to execute that strategy of increasing revenue around product X. When in fact we have clarity from that sales goal to the sales strategy to achieve that goal and the on-the-job behaviors that the sales team needs to do, my job as a sales leader, whether I'm a vice president, I'm an area director, or I'm a frontline sales manager, becomes much more clear because now I know I can establish the clear KPIs and I know what I'm being held accountable to. So I think some of the best have that alignment.
What is it that the best do, though, to create that alignment? Because I hear clarity. Incidentally, you may know this, that other leaders have said clarity is one of the most critical elements of their system, and then about what, right? But if clarity was easy, I guess every leader would be able to achieve it, and we wouldn't be talking about the difference between great leaders and everybody else. So, look, what do you see the best leaders doing to achieve and drive that clarity you're talking about?
I believe that they actually have a metric attached to it. A metric brings clarity. So you heard me use numbers, 7% margin increase, 15% revenue increase in particular product. There's no gray matter there. I know what that number is. And I know that if I had a 15% growth in this particular product, I should be able to hit that 7% revenue margin increase that we expect. So I believe that some of the best, when they take what they're being held accountable to and they can quantify it, you're more likely to have greater success. If you ask some of the top sales leaders today, what are you measured on? Give me the top 3 things you're measured on and quantify it for me. They'll be able to tell you that I'm measured on a 22% growth in this particular market. I'm measured on a 15% turnover, no more than a 15% turnover of my staff, and I'm measured on X. Top managers know the quantifiable number to which they are being measured on. I think where managers begin to fail is when, in fact, they either have not been given that number or they're not being held accountable to that number that they've been given, and therefore it just becomes gray matter. And that's an unfortunate reality. When we can have metrics, we understand what those metrics are we're held accountable to, I think you have greater success.
So it sounds like part of the challenge that the best leaders are able to overcome is not only are they clear about what they're trying to achieve and what those metrics are, but they go to some lengths to help the rest of their organization understand, not only in terms of like metrics, but like, here's how you achieve it, right? They've got to be doing something more than just, here's your goal.
Yeah, very true.
What else? Anything else that you'd say, again, reflecting on the best leaders that you know, clarity. And again, for those listening, we've heard that from a handful of leaders that they say that the number one thing that I have to be for my organization to succeed is clear about what we're trying to achieve, about how we get there, right? So very similar to things you've said, Steve, which is great. Is there anything else, though, that you'd say while reflecting on that system that you haven't shared so far?
I think you can have clarity, which is critically important, but clarity without accountability, you're not likely to achieve the outcomes. So, and accountability as a sales leader is making sure that the job gets done. And remember, you're a sales leader, you have people underneath you that you have to hold accountable to. They're all being held accountable to achieving something. So if in fact our strategy is to grow revenue with existing customers, and that's the strategy, we need to ensure that our salespeople are being held accountable for doing the things necessary to execute that plan. So are they spending time with their existing customers? Are we holding them accountable to it? Or are they simply running off to the next deal, or only hanging out with those accounts to whom they like or they know? If the strategy is that we are expecting a 30% increase in our revenue this year from existing customers, well, we need to hold our sales team accountable for making sure that they're doing that. And so therefore, there has to be clarity from the sales rep standpoint. The sales reps need to know that they need to spend, I'm going to make something up here, they need to have 8 customer visits per quarter with existing customers to talk about this part of the product portfolio that they haven't currently yet adopted. That's a number there. So me as a sales manager can simply say, okay, Matt, our objective was that we were going to meet with 8 different customers each quarter to talk about this part of the product portfolio that they know nothing about. Let's see how well you're doing. So you've done 6 out of the 8, and we've got 1 month left. Well done. Or you've done 2 out of the 8, and we've got 2 weeks left. Matt, we need to talk because we are not going to be able to hit our 30% growth of existing customers if I have my sales team ignoring that existing customer base.
Right.
So I think accountability is equally as important as it is clarity around the measurable, that quantitative metric.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. In other episodes, in other conversations we've had with leaders, we've talked about accountability. It comes up in different ways, right? And what's hard about it? So you've called out a couple of the things that are really critical for accountability. What are we trying to achieve is the first thing, right? Why is that important to us and to you specifically is the next thing. And here's what I see, because I'm with you. I think clarity and accountability, I'm like, yeah, heck yes, those are absolutely critical parts of a system, especially when you're trying to transform an organization, get better results than we've gotten in the past. But the thing that I see that's a missing piece in the way a lot of average managers approach this idea of clarity and accountability is they don't do enough to explain the how. They don't lay out expectations. So people lack motivation, right? I don't want to do what you're asking me to do because I don't know why I should. We see it a lot. So, okay, good. We've got a lot more to learn from you. I want to kind of shift gears here and move in the direction of maybe other lessons learned. So I said at the top, I haven't been in the sales performance business quite as long as you have. It's close.
I know, I'm a much older man than you are.
Much older man than me. Yeah. But I've been around, I call it 150 or so transformations of different sizes over the last 20 years, right? In different roles. I imagine you've been around more than that, right? Especially.
Oh, at least 5 times more than that. Yeah, at least.
So you've learned some lessons, I presume, by being around all of these transformations, many that have been successful and maybe some that haven't. So what's the most important lesson that you've learned so far about leading a sales transformation, getting an organization to change and deliver a better result? What's the biggest lesson, would you say, or most important?
It's funny. I was just on a conversation with a customer today, and her biggest challenge is the lack of top-line support. When senior leaders, I'm talking the CRO, the Chief Revenue Officer, the VP of Sales, is merely just paying lip service to the initiative. And they're expecting their directors and their frontline managers to carry the day. And they just take their eye off the ball. And and all they do is they react to the initiative. Why are we not getting what we spent money on? We said that we were going to go in this direction, and they're looking at those lagging indicators wondering, shit, we didn't hit our number. Why not? Well, when in fact we can have top level, again, I'll use the word clarity and accountability and buy-in at that level, you see those sales transformations happen not only more effectively, but more efficiently. This particular sales leader that we were talking about today, she just simply says, hey, this is your job. You have to go do this. And I'm talking to a director of sales enablement today. And as I was talking to her, I said, yes, your job is to ensure that the sales team is prepared, sales team meaning the entire organization from VP to directors to frontline managers to sales organization. They are prepared for this transformation. It is not your job to hold them accountable to doing it. And she says, well, I feel as if my job that's being put on to me. I said, you can't. They don't report to you. So this is just a real life example from my call this morning at 9 a.m. that we are having to put some things in place to reconnect this chief revenue officer to this initiative and to spell out, hey, you've got to look at those leading indicators. You've got to be able to ask questions about these things just once a month. We're not asking you to go do their job, but if you're not asking about it, it ain't getting done. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we have seen. What causes any kind of sales transformation initiative to fail is a lack of senior level commitment. I won't use the word buy-in because buy-in often simply says, yeah, I agree with doing that.
Yeah.
You got my buy-in.
Yeah.
No, I need your commitment and I need your action. You have to understand what your role is to this. And if you're not committed to doing this, you have to understand there are some repercussions to that.
Yeah.
So that would be, I think, one of the biggest things that I've seen.
I'm curious. Have you ever had to push back and basically tell a leader, hey, you're not ready, like you're senior most, like you don't have that top line support? Have you ever had to have that conversation?
We had it last year, Matt. We'll leave the company name out of it.
Sure.
You know who the client is, and we had to simply say, you're not ready for this initiative right now. Go clean house. Get your house together, because you're going to start spending money with me. You're coming to me saying, hey, help fix our initiative. And training is not going to fix this initiative. Coaching is not going to fix this initiative.
Right.
What you need to do is you need to make sure that we have the right people in place that can say, I understand that by doing this, we're going to achieve this. So therefore, I need to make sure this gets done. Yes, you, Mr. Sales Leader, if you want to see these outcomes, you need to make sure these things get done. So get me the right people in place up here. Then let's have a conversation about coming back in and investing more time around how do we coach your managers. But I can coach your managers until I'm blue in the face. If I don't have their manager, their boss, asking them about it, holding them accountable to it, listening in on those coaching conversations to ensure what they hope is getting done is actually getting done, we're wasting your money. So yeah, we will hit the pause button on some of these initiatives with clients because they're just not ready.
Yeah, that's sort of the ultimate customer focus, right? We'd love to take your money, but now keep in mind our audience. We're dealing with frontline managers, leaders of leaders, and I'm going to project a little bit here because I've been one of these second line leaders who had a CEO who kind of paid lip service to changes we were going to make. But I found out sort of after the fact. Here I was, the head of revenue, sales operations, customer success, and marketing, leading those functions. And I found out after the fact that the leader, not only was he not acting, he was actively sort of working against the change, which is sort of extreme, right? So, but that's not what most leaders deal with. I think they probably are dealing with something more like what you're saying. It's like, look, that our CSO or CEO is saying the right things, but the action isn't there. So if I'm a frontline or a second line manager, I've got the ear of that chief sales officer or CEO. Is there anything I can do about that? Like, what should I do if I've got a leader who's paying lip service but isn't taking action, the sort of action that's really going to demonstrate to people that we're supported and we really mean it when we say we want to change? Like, what can I do about that?
That's a big question, and it's a complex answer because there's so many variables that go into it. Am I a mid-level manager? There's only one of me, and I have, let's say, I'm the vice president of sales, who reports up to the chief sales officer, and then I have all these other sales managers underneath me. If that's the scenario, I would say, Mr. Vice President of Sales, you got two options here: coach up, get him on board, or just let him do his job and you take responsibility for it yourself. Okay. I mean, if you're that vice president level and you're reporting up to that chief sales officer, and that chief sales officer is just too busy, and sometimes that's all it is. It's not that they're working against you. Right. They got other things on their plate, and this just is not an important initiative. So therefore, they're not asking you about it. Well, if you're that second line leader, somebody has got to own that. Somebody's got to say, hey guys, we just spent $100,000 on this initiative here. But more important than that $100,000 initiative, we spent that money because what we're trying to do is to grow revenue of this particular company 22% in 2024. And we're not going to do that if we just expect to do the same thing we did last year. Hey, we had a good year last year. We grew 9%. Well done. Guess what? The board's expecting 22% this year. If we just continue doing what we did last year, we're not going to hit the number. So Mike up here is busy doing his other things. We have got to come together as second line leaders here and say, we've got to hold our team accountable. We need to make sure there's clarity around what's taking place here, and we need to take on that initiative. So my advice to those kind of second line leaders, either coach up, try to get them on board, let them know why this is so critically important that their voice be heard all the way down to that frontline sales rep, or simply say, listen, we got this. You go focus on this. We got this. And we'll report back to you on a monthly or quarterly basis, whatever you want.
Okay.
But somebody has got to take it and own it.
Yeah. I guess the point in all that is we have to do something. We can ask for the support you need. Maybe as a principle, an idea we can pull out of what you just said. You said coach up or manage up. If I'm not getting the support I need, I need to ask for it. But we'll connect something else you talked about earlier, which is the why. Sometimes even those senior most leaders need to be reminded why we need the help, why this was important in the first place. We all agree this is what we're trying to achieve. You're asking me to carry the full burden of this, but here's why I need more than that. We'll pause the conversation right there and pick up in part 2 of this episode. And I'll talk some more with Steve Gielda from Ignite Selling about managing up. We'll also talk about some of the great leaders and coaches that he has learned from personally and the key lessons he's applied over his last few decades of work as a leader and consultant to top performing sales organizations all over the world. So please do join us for part 2 of this fantastic conversation with Steve. In the meantime, I'm Matt McDarby, host of the Sales Leaders Operating System podcast. Thank you so much for joining. Bye-bye for now. We'll see you soon.